Hey fam, I want you to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications.
Folks, as I said earlier, I talked about several prominent African Americans who have passed away as a result of stroke. John Singleton, 51. You heard me talk with Mario Van Peebles about film director and producer George Jackson at 42. Luther Vandross passed away from complications from his stroke at 54. Of course, also Barry White, 58 years old. But how are African Americans more impacted by strokes than anyone else? Joining us right now is Dr. James Allred, cardiologist with the Cone Health Medical Group. And of course, we're here in Greensboro for this American Heart Association event. We're supposed to be talking about, of course, this HBCU initiative dealing with the reality of health outcomes for African Americans. And this story's happened and sort of collided. And so for the folks who don't know, what exactly is a stroke?
That's a great question. I think a perfect question, because so many people listening, we have no idea what a stroke is. So basically, a stroke is like a heart attack, but of the brain. The brain doesn't get adequate blood flow. And lots of things can cause a stroke. Often it's a blockage of an artery going to the brain. And because the arteries to the brain are so small, these blockages can come from multiple sources.
And in fact, the initial reporting was that John Singleton had returned from a trip, was complaining about a problem with his leg, and checked himself into the hospital.
Right. Yeah, so we have seen cases. I'm not speaking to this particular case, but we've seen cases where you could have a blood clot in your leg. For example, they can travel to your heart, and because of a small hole that some people will have in their heart, about 20–25% of people have a little small hole between the upper chambers of their heart, that clot could actually travel to the brain and cause a stroke. Not saying, again, that that's what happened here. I don't have access to that kind of information, but that's something we see sometimes. High blood pressure, hypertension is a real cause for stroke.
In fact, there was a woman who, at my church in Houston, she actually had a spike in her blood pressure that caused her stroke. Her blood, she was normal, but something happened when all of a sudden it just shot up. And she spent several years in a wheelchair recovering from that. Did not have health issues before that, but then it just happened.
That's right. And the problem with stroke is, the price you pay for your stroke can be very high. They can be fatal. We see people who die of their stroke, as witnessed here, complications of a stroke, Mr. Singleton.
How do we avert? You talked about hypertension, high blood pressure.
Right.
What else can be done for us where we are not in that situation to actually have a stroke?
So lifestyle modification the best we can in 2019. Avoiding tobacco. Cutting out the tobacco. Watching that diet, low salt, low fat, low fried foods. Greensboro, North Carolina is in the stroke belt. And when you look at obesity and you look at some of the other things that occur, they track along right aside of stroke. And so a healthy lifestyle goes a long ways. And
so one of the things that folks all should be doing is obviously what you just mentioned, but also constantly, I always say you should know your number. You should constantly get your blood pressure checked.
That's right.
I was at a church in Dallas, and we had a nurses ministry, and they offered free blood pressure checks after church on Sunday. And now these were the same nurses who worked at the Baylor College of Medicine.
Right.
And I'm going, guys, it's free.
That's right.
And I'm going, if you get sick, this is what you're going to do.
That's right.
You're going to have to see the same nurses.
That's right.
And the number of people who literally would not stop just for those 2 minutes. And then one day, so I'm out there haranguing people to, come get it done.
Right.
And the nurses ministry loved me doing it. And that was an African-American woman. She had 2 kids. And one of the young kids, it took his blood pressure. She says, you need to go to the hospital. She says, I'll go to the doctor tomorrow. She says, no. You need to go now.
Right.
Her child had his bloodshot eyes, and the child's blood pressure was sky high.
Right.
They said, no, you need to go now.
Right.
Had they not caught it then, it could have been devastating for their child.
That's right.
But again, for so many people, they wouldn't do it. It's free.
Right. That's right. And going out to the public, I think, is important. American Heart Association recognizes that. You're starting to see barbershops now where you can have your blood pressure checked when you get your hair cut. Because people aren't always going to just come into my clinic and say, hey, I don't think I have any health issues, but let's check my blood pressure and see.
Right. I get mine checked. Look, if I was in line at a bank.
Right.
And they have free blood pressure. I'm like, first of all, it's free.
That's right.
And so I'm always getting mine checked, because when I've had sinus infection, and when all of a sudden I got it checked, and if it was 140, I would go, hold up, that's high.
Right.
Because I knew what my number had consistently been.
That's right.
And it's just for so many people, it's just the hardest thing in the world to get somebody to say, guys, just know your blood pressure number.
That's right.
And that way you're constantly getting it checked. If you hear it's 135 or 140, you go, wait a minute, hold up. I'm normally 110 or 115.
That's right. Exactly right. And so, you go to a pharmacy, you go to Walmart, you go to these kind of places, often, YMCA, you can put your arm in there and get that blood pressure checked. And that's key. That's really important. I think something that's really crucial, too, is to know the signs and symptoms of a stroke.
And what are they?
So that you can help your family member. If that person, all of a sudden, they just can't comprehend what you're saying.
Yep.
They can't speak. They're trying, but the words just aren't coming out.
That happened to one of my aunts at my birthday party. Yep.
Right. Sometimes you'll see a facial droop. All of a sudden, Auntie's left face is drooping all of a sudden, and she doesn't even know. Bring it to her attention. Go look in the mirror with her. Sometimes we can't move one side of our body, or we can't feel one side of our body. We have numbness. Our vision is blurred, or all of a sudden we have kind of tunnel vision, or we can only see out of one eye, or, I don't even recognize someone's to the left of me anymore.
What is a mini stroke? Because I've heard that from some doctors, if some people have mini strokes.
Right. So, there are lots of terms that we throw around in medicine. So a stroke, by definition, means that some of the brain cells have died because they didn't get adequate blood flow. Mm-hmm. We would all agree a massive stroke, is one where we have profound deficits. Our body, we can't move our left side. We're, like you described with your friend, they're in a wheelchair, and it takes years to get over. That's a massive stroke. A mini stroke means it, was a small stroke, maybe to a smaller territory of the brain, or that it just resolved quickly, and we didn't have the deficits or the long-term paralysis or weakness or numbness. We often also describe what are called TIAs, transient ischemic attacks. And what that means is basically you had symptoms, they were real, they were legit, they resolved on their own, typically within about 24 hours. And when later we go back and we do an MRI or head CT, we don't see any evidence of it. It's completely resolved. We call that a transient ischemic attack.
All right. Dr. Allred, we certainly appreciate it. We have to chat with you under these circumstances, but it's, with the passing of John Singleton to a stroke, and it's certainly what we're doing here with the American Heart Association, this initiative they're doing to get better health outcomes for African Americans, partnering with HBCUs, is certainly is timely and important.
And thanks for being here and supporting the event and helping to get the word out. We appreciate that.
All right. Thanks a bunch. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
All right.
For support Roland Martin Unfiltered, be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.